I'm resident of Collard for YouTube, Joel Saints. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Gordon Dymowski. We are here to review the Avengers Season 6, Episode 1. So, and this episode was chosen by Gordon. I really love the nifty guns they have in here, the memory erasing guns, they're pocket size. Uh, this is also, this is also Diana Rigg's last episode. Uh, just a lot of fun going on in here. I love the little sets you get, and I love how we have some car stuff going on, a car fight inside the car and outside of it. What did you guys think here, Gordon?
Well, this is an episode I first saw when I was a kid, and at that time, I don't think the Friday CBS late night had the Tara King episodes. So I was wondering what the heck happened, and then I found out because those episodes were shown by A&E in the 90s. I think it's good to have a nice handover from Mrs. Peel to Tara King. I think that's handled beautifully. I think, though, it also shows, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people like me don't really care for this last year, because you start to see the creeping wackiness. It's when with the color rig season, you get a sense of slightly daffy, slightly kind of, eccentric. I think here it becomes this kind of weird almost because it involves amnesia and shooting darts at you. Some of the humor you could see starting to lean into the silly, which isn't bad, but I think it kind of sets a weird tone for the series moving forward. I mean, this is the last series, and and I think at this time they were, even though the ratings in America were going down, I think there were other countries that were like, no, we want you to keep making it. Because if you look at this season, there's like 30 some episodes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think too, even though I do agree with you about the wackiness, but I think overall the stories are still entertaining
How many in this season have you watched?
Just 2 so far.
Oh,
sorry.
well, that's
Sorry.
But that's fine. It was just a question.
But so far, the first 2 actually, I watched this one and I watched the next one because Mrs. Peel's leave, and I want to see what the next episode looked like. I will say I wasn't born in that era, and I didn't watch this in its original run, but it was still looking entertaining despite the wackiness. You know what I mean?
I think there was like some like sizest like kerfuffle that went on during the shooting of the season. I think and that to me, that's one of the uglier aspects of the culture around the show. I think it's not Joanna Lumley. Is it Joanna Lumley?
No, this is Linda Thorson.
Linda Thorson, yeah, Linda Thorson came under a lot of criticism from what I understand, because I think she probably afforded to eat and gained some weight over the season. And from what I understand, there was British tabloids are really cruel.
Yeah.
And that was an aspect. Gordon, have you heard anything about that?
Well, there's a couple of things that went on. Part of it is that there was a perception that I don't see it, but there's a perception that Tara and Steed were kind of a little bit more intimate.
Yes.
Than Mrs. Peel. I've seen many of the episodes in the season. I don't see it. So I think that's part of it. I think part of the perception is that you're going from an equal to someone who is you perceive as slightly younger than McNee, who I think actually lost weight during this run.
Right.
So I could see where if there's issues about his decreased weight, and if there are issues about Thorson's weight, it becomes this weird kind of, because the perception is, okay, one person's getting skinnier,
Well, there was a law of conservation of Avengers star fat
right,
that
basically.
is an established part of physics where their fat cannot be created nor destroyed. It just shifts back and forth between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
There were
Yeah.
transfusions backstage.
Yeah, and I think too the series. This was this series, they opened it up because for the last Rig season, it was written by two writers, Philip Levine and Brian Clemens. This year, the writing, they have all sorts of different writers who take different approaches, and so you've got a little bit more of a it's like they're trying to avoid burnout, but they're kind of burning themselves out more quickly because it's it's I kind of see it as like, in my view, every series should have a limited shelf life. A series lasts as long as it lasts. So so I would rather have like 6 years of the Avengers, with the last year being okay, it's starting to go, but doesn't go off the rails, than say I'm trying to think of a TV show, than like say the X-Files, where you can kind of go, well, maybe they should have ended, like some people will say seasons 5 or 6. I would say, do we really need the Robert Patrick and Annabella Sciorra year? That's where I think you could probably let go.
I'm very strict about that. I mean, I agree with you viciously.
Mm-hmm.
The Sopranos is a good example. That if it had stopped at its first season, at the end of its first season, it would be this amazing I Claudius like, story, because everybody's mission is accomplished. Everyone gets what they deserve one way or the other at the end of that. Star Trek: The Next Generation, it's a really weird example, because even though they made good episodes after the fourth season, it all felt the same.
Mm-hmm.
After once they hit their stride, they didn't speed up, they didn't slow down, and after a while, it just became Star Trek loaf.
Mm-hmm.
And I had very little interest in those last seasons. People talk about how lousy season 7 was. Kind of, I didn't see it. I mean, I watched Best of Both, or whatever, the All Good Things, but that was it. So I agree with you in a big way. And then there's the philosophy that kind of happened with the Avengers, where let's take a year off, or I guess about 5 years off, and do something new. With new, the same idea, but with some new cast members. How do you think that worked?
Well, knowing I knew a little bit, because the Avengers was one of those. I had the actual book that came out in the 90s about the Avengers.
I got to see book.
Yeah, and I think what happened was, even though the show went off in England and America, it became really big in France and really big in Canada. So I think the first year of the new Avengers was funded by French television.
The French, yeah.
And
because that explained a lot of the fashions, I think, on Purdy.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too was, the idea is you give Steed like 2 junior members. They can do the action stuff, and Patrick McNee can just drink tea and be charming.
Speaking of which, when did the character of Mother get introduced?
This is it. This is it. This is his first.
I don't really recall, and I've seen very little of the Avengers, but there being that much discussion of an organization that Steed fit into. I mean, I kind of get the idea he worked for somebody, but it never was that clearly delineated.
Yeah, they never did the even since the first series, which most of it is white and most of it is completely different. Steed was kind of this guy who you knew he worked for the government, you just didn't know what he did. And I think this is part of why I kind of, this is not one of my favorite seasons, and why I see the show, because it's like, okay, it's like every spy show. We got to give him an organization. We got to give him a boss. But the reason why you never heard of Mother before this time is this is his first episode.
Right.
but like with, I mean, never reference again the New Avengers. So the first season was French. The second was actually called the New Avengers in Canada because they got Canadian funding, and I think they actually did some filming in
They
Canada.
had to put "in Canada" in the title
Mm-hmm.
because nothing's more exciting than avenging in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Who needs avenging? Canadians. And of course, given the political situation right now, that may be true.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, go ahead, Joel.
I was just saying, and considering how long it's been since they won a Stanley Cup, I mean, the teams.
Hey, do not mock Canada, okay?
Not mocking.
Four words, Kids in the Hall. Entire seasons on Tubi. Go watch, Joel. That is comedy gold right there.
Moose McGlade.
Yeah.
Moose McGlade.
John Candy.
Yeah.
Martin Short.
William
fucking Shatner.
Yeah.
Jonathan fucking Frid.
Yes.
Yeah. You shut your mouth about don't talk smack about Canada. Badmouth me all you want, but do not badmouth Jonathan Frid.
Well,
Michael J. Fox will take you on.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, my wife has the hots for Jonathan Frid. So what am I going to say? I mean, she loves
what
Canadian.
Era?
She
Is
loves
it the one-man show era.
No, the Dark Shadows era.
Okay.
She listen. She loves Canadians, especially Jonathan Frid. So
I've never heard of a Canadian fetish before.
there you go. There you go.
She wants Moosehead.
Yeah, something. So I have a question. Why did they go? What made them go with this younger actress here? Like, did they pick her specifically for?
Well, she's a doll.
Yeah,
I mean, for one thing,
Well, but the short. Well, first off, Rig had been doing the role for 2 years.
Okay.
Her first year, she learned that she wasn't earning as much as Patrick Macnee was, so they said, okay, next year, she was paid pretty much equal to what Macnee was. However, like any actress, she wants to do different roles, she wants to do the stage. Doing a TV show is tough. And so she decided to leave at the end of this season. I don't know if the Forget Me Not was recorded at the tail end of the previous season or they brought her in for this episode. I could see where they'd give her, as she's leaving, okay, you agree to come to just do this for a couple of days and then you're gone.
Yeah. Really great choreography here, the cinematography too. I love the fight sequences because they look sloppy to a degree, but it looks like they're supposed to, but they look fun that way.
I don't know. I don't know. That's either a high compliment. It feels like it's kind of a diss that you're trying to wrap up as a high compliment.
No, not at all. More of a compliment because if you're the way they play this is the characters are forgetting. Well, if you're forgetting,
I see
you're going to forget how you fight in a sense.
Yeah.
And
I think should have gotten into slap fights.
Yeah. They should have found like a Waffle House parking lot and just had a massive slap fight.
Yeah. Now, I like how they did this in this episode because, again, if you're going to include this forgetful tranquilizer thing, it's like, okay, then you should be forgetting how to do your combat stuff. And that's sort of how it looked. But then the memory started coming back, and then they say, okay, now we got to fight. We got to remember how to fight. And then they did. So I like how they did that in this episode here. Mm-hmm. So
there's a lot of people, I kind of wonder if this was the best story to have them go out on, where they kind of, where I always have a problem with faulty identity episodes as the last or as a reunion, because I don't feel like I'm really getting the characters. There's a lot of this. Oh, I don't remember who I am. I guess you must be Mr. Peel. And that's not really what I want to see. I would rather see the character as themselves, at full tilt. It's kind of like the last episode of Star Trek, Turnabout Intruder, where he becomes Janet Lester. And that's our last visions of Captain Kirk. Shatner kind of his toupee, and it feels a little unsatisfying. However, when I think about why this may have been picked and why this may have been done, who's the one character who really has their identity fully, the whole time? Well, Tara King. And so it kind of forces her to be kind of even more front and center.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. Gordon, what do you think?
I think I think the episode, part of what doesn't make the episode work for me is that there's nothing wrong with the unsure identity, but a lot of it is played as farce. And I think this is the season where the Avengers has such a specific tone of humor because it's witty, it's urbane, it's clever, and it will often border on the eccentric. And here it starts to feel a little forced, like it would be if, like, imagine, to use Dark Shadows as an example, if you imagine the 1840 flashback went on a month or two longer than it did.
Yeah.
You'd wonder, okay, why am I watching this? They're stretching it out, and they started doing a little bit more wacky comedy things in amidst the atmosphere and kind of.
If you look at Carnaby Street culture and all of that in England, the mod kind of thing, it feels like iconoclasm drove a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
How much can we turn something expected upside down? How much can we kind of tweak the nose of propriety and so on? And a little bit goes a long way, especially when you're not expecting it. What do you do when that's sort of your aesthetic, but now everyone is expecting it?
Mm-hmm.
And all you're kind of left with is escalating the wacky.
Right.
And I think that's, you can only go so far with that. I mean, look at the difference. Even though I like the movie Help, look at the difference between Hard Day's Night and Help.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the authorial voice, or going further, when you get into the early 70s, which is just a few years away, something like The Magic Christian, the movie, which is really, really, really out there. And it gets to a point where they just feel like, they're trying too hard. And then you got Roger Daltrey in a dress with a 12-foot penis, in Listomania. And like Rick Wakefield is Thor. And suddenly, all bets are off, and Ken Russell's in charge of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because there were times where this year actually leaned into the humor. Like, I know one episode that was written by Dennis Spooner, who was a script editor for Doctor Who, and he also did a lot of these ATV shows. The title is called, and I cannot end it. And you could probably guess the plot as soon as I say the title. Stop. Yeah. Stop. Don't tell me if you didn't hear this one before. There were these two fellers.
That's the whole title?
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the word stop.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if you heard this one before.
Mm-hmm.
There are these two fellers. I like a long title, as a gag, but that's a really long title.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are still gems, like there's Super Secret Cipher Snatch, which I think is episode 3. They keep killing Steed, which is really interesting. And then there's Bizarre, which is it's meant to be the final episode, but it ends on one of those. Okay, spoiler alert for everyone watching. Steed and Tara are in a rocket. The rocket is accidentally shot off into orbit, and Mother says, "Oh, they're up there unchaperoned. I wonder what's going to happen." Dun 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 dun.
And that's the end of the episode.
That's the end of the episode.
Well, perhaps they're going to die of, asphyxiation.
Well, no.
They're going to hit the Van Allen belt.
Yeah, well, I assume that the rocket came down because how do you have the new Avengers?
Right.
Sure.
Right.
It's a dream that he's having during his oxygen deprivation as he's dying up there. I mean, that's that moment in You Only Live Twice that to me is the most unrecognized funny moment in the entire James Bond franchise. Remember when it's towards the end and he's disguised himself as one of the astronauts.
Yeah.
And he's in line and he's about to get into the capsule. I think he may even be stepping into it, literally, when Blofeld notices something weird about him. He's still got a cigarette lit in his hand or something like that. And says, "Stop," and calls Bond over to find out where he got those shoes or something. And I've always wondered, okay, James Bond's good at a lot of things. He's trained in a lot of things. But a space capsule is not one of them.
Yeah.
And what the fuck does he do when he's up there and he's bolted into the capsule and it goes up? And suddenly Bond is thinking, I didn't think this through really well enough. I don't know how I'm gonna die up here. Because if anything, the other guy's gonna stab me.
Yeah.
Like in the Justice League New Frontier. So I always enjoyed that. And so the idea of the two of them winding up in space is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
It's like when what was it? Willie and Joe Haskell wind up in that space capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and that's basically the premise of the Far Out Space Nuts is Willie and Joe Haskell in a rocket ship.
Now, what was Far Out Space Nuts though? That was Chuck McCann and Bob Denver, right?
Right.
What was the one with Ruth Buzzy and Jim Nabors? Was that Space 1999? Which one was that?
No. I think it was Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
No, it was the Lost Saucer.
Yeah, the Lost Saucer.
Yeah. Well, did they ever do an X-Files episode crossing those two things?
Oh, I wish they did.
God, I mean, it's a Jose Chung episode.
You've seen
and Joel, that you now have. You should be able to find some of these on YouTube, if not Tubi, because Tubi has a lot of the Crofts stuff available.
Yeah. You've seen the X-Files episode where it was like they were on cops, right?
Mm-hmm. I've even seen the X-Files episode where they crossed over with Friends.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Good old X-Files. Good old X-Files. Oh my God.
You know what? Other than the Jose Chung episodes and the first movie, I've never seen an X-Files episode.
Okay?
Just pass me
what's an episode of a series or maybe a season of a series you felt this wasn't needed?
A lot of them. Seasons 1 through 7 of Voyager. It comes to mind. Star Trek Discovery. I mean, just let's look at the Star Trek franchise. It's got a lot.
Yeah.
And I love it. I'm a company man, but it's got a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you on Discovery. I'm with you on that one.
I hear Prodigy is really good. I haven't seen it. Lower Decks is not my cup of tea. Mariner is just way too extra.
That's why I love about Lower Decks is it breaks through some of that pomposity that Star Trek has.
Well, it does that. It's just a little too dramatic. I mean, I enjoyed These Old Scientists, which I don't know if you saw that. It was the crossover episode with Strange New Worlds. And that was really good because I finally realized, oh yeah, they did cast these people ahead of time with the thought that they would go live action at some point.
Yeah.
The issue I had with Strange New Worlds was I felt like they saw Orville coming, and they thought, okay, Seth MacFarlane, you think you're going to do funny in our universe? Well, guess what? We're going to make a bunch of characters look like Family Guy characters, and screw you, pal. And I sort of see, and they did it very well. I mean, last episode of Lower Decks, I just thought it was magnificent. I just majestic. I really mean that. Uh, I really wish they'd left Orville alone. It felt like a subtle dig, and it wasn't. It's just my imagination. But every time I would hear somebody talking about Discovery, I just wish they'd been watching Orville also, not instead of, just also.
Yeah, I think first with Discovery, I will acknowledge that first season and a half there were a lot of problems, including that they had they had showrunners who were later removed because they were abusive to their staff, and they decided to basically do Game of Thrones in space. And the one thing about Star Trek is there's no elements in common with Game of Thrones. The other thing is I kind of wish they had started with the premise that led off their third season, which is Federation Starship somehow ends up in the future where there's no Federation. Because I think at its core, and I will defend Discovery, because I think what it was trying to do was answer the question, and I think this was the main theme of the show, which is how do you live up to noble ideals? How do you hold on to those central ideals that drive you to do better in a circumstance that actively acts against it?
Well, I thought that was DS9.
Well, it's a variation on that theme.
Okay, that's fine. That's legitimate.
Mhm.
It's just uh, everyone seemed to be in such a bad mood on Discovery. That I had an issue with that. I literally couldn't follow the plots. It just, maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I need to sit on somebody's lap and have them explain it to me while I watch. But it's like there's so much techno babble in so many, like the whole Red Angel business. And I mean, I wish they had a little meter at the end of the second season of just what volume of liquid of tears were we dealing with as it went on, because it just got ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, this is the scene where people cry.
Yeah,
Okay.
and in the last 3 seasons, I think they were a little too over reliant on the big threat that's going to hurt the galaxy.
Yeah.
We need to stop it.
Well,
I think if they had approached it the way that Strange New Worlds did, whereas yes, there's arcs in it, but you do each episode as its own thing and then build towards that.
Strange New Worlds came out, and I just thought, was that so hard? Was that so tough?
Yeah.
Was it? Maybe it was. Maybe that's why they didn't do it. But I think it was just a matter of them finally giving themselves permission. Because you saw Discovery kind of straining to do that, especially in its last season. What do you mean we're stiff and square and humorless? No, we're fun and raucous, and it just felt like manufactured merriment. I just, with their efforts to loosen Burnham up and Burnham, I gotta say, there's a political game I play in my mind sometimes with this stuff called Switch the Genders or Switch the Race. And if Burnham's endless litany of talents had been given to Pike, who still is good at a lot of stuff, there would have been a riot. It's like the people would say, "There's no way one person can be." I think it was the beginning of the second season is what broke me. Mm-hmm. As she's flying around in the pod and she's like doing stuff that no one with any degree of reflexes could ever do, and so now she's an ace fighter pilot on top of a mathematical genius and a Vulcan kung fu expert. I mean, Doc Savage didn't do all of that stuff, and it was this almost messianic treatment, and I thought we are better than that as people making TV. It really took me out of it. Uh, it's not that I wanted to be bad at things, but can we diversify the talents a little bit, and maybe put as the ace pilot, or the girl with the robot face, as and they got rid of the robot girl just when she got interesting. I love the robot girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take. I'm done.
Okay. Well, to answer my answer for Jules' original question, which is what season could I
Long
easily
ago.
get rid of?
Sorry.
Season 17 of classic Doctor Who, except for 2 stories, because it's the Douglas Adams. He was the script editor. The producer was Graham Williams, who by that time, basically, he was just a backbencher. So, except for
which Doctor?
Tom Baker.
Okay.
And by this point, Baker was like, "Oh, this is my show. I can do little wacky comedy bits and argue with directors." There's 2 stories I would preserve, because the rest are kind of you wonder what the hell Douglas Adams was doing, but basically he was avoiding deadlines. There's City of Death and Nightmare of Eden, which is, if you ever want to watch a Doctor Who story about drug smuggling, it's an interesting episode, because there are some bonkers ideas in it, but the rest of that series is just not good. It's like I wouldn't even like the only reason I would encourage Jewel to say watch like Destiny of the Daleks or Creature from the Pit is because I hate him and want him to suffer.
No. We know that's not true. Jewel, don't you listen to your father? Listen to me.
Yeah. I have many fathers at this point. And
yeah, I would never do that, because that would just be mean.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you mine, to me, and I love the series for the most part, but I get why the character kept coming back, but Murdoch coming back one last time in MacGyver was just like, what was the point? Really?
I think you can say the 18.
No. Like he comes back and joins this terrorist group and MacGyver has to convince not just Pete Thornton, but this other person, because Pete Thornton is blind at this point. He has to convince this woman that Murdoch is still alive, and she doesn't want to believe him. And it's like, really? And Pete knows better. Pete knows he believes MacGyver, but the woman doesn't. It's like, really? You don't believe this guy's still alive after how many times they've nearly killed him? Just stop it. That's my complaint. Sorry.
Who's Murdoch?
Murdoch was MacGyver's arch nemesis. He was a hitman.
He was played by Michael Debar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did he have a toolbox where everything that would be on a Swiss Army knife was instead laid out as a single instrument, and he had to choose them? And that's what made him the opposite of MacGyver?
No, he was a master of disguise. He could disguise himself as women or anything else. Like,
disguising himself as women, maybe more than he needed to.
Well, there's an episode called Cleo Rocks where he disguises himself as a stage manager, and that's the Phantom of the Opera MacGyver episode.
Yeah.
Where Michael writes the lyrics for Cleo Rocks, actually.
Steve Shives loves MacGyver. Yeah. And his episodes always convince me I need to watch it. MacGyver just came on at a time when I finally started working at night. Yeah. And then there was college, and then he had a mullet at one point. And
the entire run's on Tubi, Patrick, so you have no excuse.
No, I don't. I don't have any excuse. I mean, it's one of those things that I bookmark in my mind.
It's funny because it was executive produced by Henry Winkler.
Yep.
Oh, great.
I think the first couple of years were, I think Terry Nation was a creative consultant.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen parts of episodes, and I've always enjoyed them. Richard Dean Anderson was trained by the same guy who trained me, and I've heard lots of great Richard Dean Anderson stories. Genuinely just affectionate Just very, very nice things to say about him. I love that theme. I had a long talk with Dennis McCarthy about the theme once, and that was great. So yeah, I'm in to start looking. In fact, if you guys ever want to pick some MacGyver episodes and look at them, I'd be more than happy to see them for the first time and be part of that discussion.
Yeah, because the episode I remember most was it featured Edward Mulhare from Knight Rider and the Ghost of Mrs. Muir, and they make a cannon out of a car muffler.
They didn't make a cabbage gun though, like they did on the A-Team.
Yeah,
Remember
but
the
nobody
cabbage
cares
guns?
about the A-Team. But
Oh, now you
it's
can't
a
say that.
cannon out of a car muffler. I mean, it's something
That's pretty
anyone
cool.
can do.
It's like a potato gun.
Yeah, except instead of a potato, they used like a compass.
Oh God, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Let's do. Hold on. Season 4, episode 1 of MacGyver.
Right? When?
Tomorrow,
Hell yeah!
10:30. It's entitled "The Secret of Parker House."
I hear there's this really interesting episode of MacGyver. I'm totally serious here. It's like this. It's back in his hometown or something like that. It's an anti-gun.
Yes,
episode.
that's a great episode.
Yeah, Steve Shives did a video about that. That was really, really, really good.
Yeah. The one guy from 90210 makes an appearance in it.
Yeah, Jason Priestley.
Yep, Jason Priestley.
He's baby Jason Priestley.
Yeah, baby Jason.
Not the high priestly yet.
Yeah, yeah. So tomorrow, episode of MacGyver. Is there anything you guys want to add before we go here?
Yeah, I'd like to just add Richard Dean Anderson, Jason Priestley, both Canadian.
Yes. There you go. And Julie loves Canadian. She loves Jonathan Fred, right, huh?
Yeah.
Does she prefer back bacon to regular bacon?
Does she love Tim Hortons coffee?
Hun, you have questions here.
What?
Do you prefer back bacon to regular bacon? You know, Canadian bacon.
I like them both. Bacon's bacon. Bacon's awesome.
Oh no, it's a different thing. Canadian bacon. Actually, Canadian bacon is a great diet food.
I think any bacon's good. Like, just ask so she kisses the package of bacon when I buy it. She's like, bacon!
Kissing the bacon. Sure.
She loves bacon.
Oh, that's the name of my new romantic novel, Kissing the Bacon.
Kissing the bacon, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Kissing the bacon?
There you go. I like that.
That sounds,
Don't tell the rabbi.
Sounds like something I wouldn't put down.
Mike, is that sizzling you're wrapping? You're rubbing against your wrist?
Yeah. It's a novel Julie Saints wouldn't put down, as she just said. So
Where do you stand on bacon versus link sausage?
where do you stand on that?
I like bacon.
She likes bacon.
Link sausage. Sausage tends to... Bacon doesn't bother my stomach as much as sausage does.
Sausage is greasier, and it has because all those pores so grease.
Yeah, it has
And
like
it's spicier.
grittier, like the weird hard chunks. I don't like that.
It can. I like sausage patties myself. Thin, very, very, very well done.
At work, we have maple chicken sausage.
Chicken sausage doesn't count.
I like that over the regular sausage because it doesn't irritate my
brown.
stomach.
It just looks necrotic. They have that at work.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't irritate my stomach with regular sausage. So
It all irritates my stomach. I know I'm in for a busy morning if I eat breakfast.
Hey, never knock a good chicken sausage. You make it right, quite fulfilling.
I
See,
I believe you. It's just I can't do it.
See, I prefer like ham and eggs. So
Ham and eggs. What about corned beef hash, Joel? Where do you stand on the issue of corned beef hash?
oh, I like corned beef and hash.
I love corned beef hash.
I
Yeah.
love corned beef. I love corned beef. That stuff is like,
have I
oh my
had
god, that's the stuff that Dad makes
The
with the
potatoes.
noodles and stuff. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
we've had that. Oh my
Okay.
god,
Okay.
you freaking hogged up on it
Okay.
a couple different times. That shit is awesome.
I went to breakfast in 2019
Hash.
with Catherine Lee Scott at a diner. It was pretty much like Monks on Seinfeld. And I got corned beef hash which somehow baffled her. She was very amused and kind of confused and so on by my ordering corned beef hash. It was it was a weird experience. I'll still never quite understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want corned beef and hash. And thanks to Tim, now everybody wants pie for tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're having a pie party, by the way.
There you go.
At work at our
Mhm.
meeting. We're having a pie party. Fruit pie, like dessert pies, plus pizza pie. He's bringing pizza.
There you go.
3.14. A fine but very decadent omelet is corned beef hash and cheddar cheese topped with sausage gravy.
There you go. There you go.
It's amazing. That's
Yeah,
real
especially
food.
if it's made in a skillet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. A nice iron skillet, you bet. Yeah.
I'm just gained 10 pounds talking about this stuff.
Life is good. Life
Yeah.
is good.
All right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow night for MacGyver.
Yep. See you
Step
tomorrow.
wisely.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.